love chopping it up with this guy and seeing what he has become and made of himself with his opportunity on the worldwide leader in sports. College football play-by-play man, or pardon me, analyst extraordinaire, and of course, all of his pearls of wisdom that you see in the National Football League world. Robert Griffin III back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, RG3?
Hey, Rich, I'm doing great, man. How about yourself?
I'm good. I saw the vacation photographs. You and your beautiful family. You're all rested, ready to roll for the draft season.
Rested. You know, the NFL season is 24/7, so you got to find a week or two to get away and kind of recharge.
No, tell me about it.
No better way to recharge than to be with the family.
Well, I mean, sometimes, Robert, you know, it's not a vacation; it's a trip when you bring your children. You know what I mean? You can't call it a vacation. You know, when you bring your children, but that's good. I see what you do. The lovely photographs. Let me hop in with you, starting on right off the bat. Who do you think the Carolina Panthers have traded all the way up to 1 to go get? Who do you think?
Wow. I mean, it's a difficult question. I'll answer it this way, Rich.
Mm-hmm.
I think the notion that CJ Stroud is the runaway favorite is inaccurate. My sources have told me that the Panthers are enamored with both players, and they're going to, you know, kind of go through their process of all the visits, continue to study the tape, and make a decision closer to draft day than right now. So CJ Stroud, of course, there's everyone talking about the height of Bryce Young and how Frank Wright likes bigger quarterbacks. But I would just say, you know, maybe pump the brakes on that just a little bit. I think Bryce Young's size matters more to us in the media than it does to some of these higher-level executives. At least that's what I've been told.
What advice would you give to the quarterback that finishes second, like you, back in the day in the draft, Robert? What advice would you give to that kid?
You know, Rich, I think the way you just put it is perfect. If you ask Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, you know, where they want to go, they view this as a competition. So they want to go number 1 overall, regardless of the team's weapons, the expertise that they're going to be working with. They just look at this as a competition because that's how we've been conditioned to operate. So my advice to the guy that goes second would be to just continue to have that chip on your shoulder and continue to look at it as a competition, because you're going to be compared to the guy that goes number one overall for the duration of your career, and honestly for the duration of your life. It's what happened with me and Andrew Luck. You know, I would say that Andrew Luck had a better NFL career than I did. But at the end of the day, that's not how you're going to be judged as far as being a human being, as far as being a father, as far as being a son. But there's no doubt about it. These guys will continue to compete for the rest of their lives, and they know that.
Were you wined and dined and wooed by the Colts at all in that process too, Robert? The due diligence, were you part of that with the Colts as well?
I'll be 100% honest, and as always, and say no. I was not wined and dined by the Colts. The Colts put it out there throughout the draft process leading up that they were, you know, debating whether it was going to be me or Andrew, but every sign and signal that they showed me was that they had already decided who their quarterback was going to be. I didn't get a private visit, a personal visit from the Colts. None of that stuff happened. So I kind of knew going in to the draft that I wasn't going to be selected number 1 overall. It was just a matter of, was Washington going to pick me at number 2? And then that's what ended up happening. So I think that the Panthers are doing right by both players by not showing any favoritism to anyone. And even more so, they're going further because they went to every top quarterback's pro day with the full gambit of Mr. Tepper and his wife and the GM and all the coaches. So I think they're doing it the right way. Yeah,
and they're taking everybody out to dinner too. So I guess that's my way of the big wind-up here is that if the Colts had taken you out to dinner and you sensed that they weren't going to take you, would you have run up the tab on them, Robert?
Definitely wouldn't have. I wouldn't have ran up the tab on them.
No, come on, get the seafood tower, you know, and I'm not through yet. Wait a minute, I'll get the steak. You know, I don't really drink very much, but I'll take the Screaming Eagle. You know, like, wouldn't you do that? Do the whole thing?
I think if the Colts would have really dove in and went into that process with an open mind, I think I could have convinced them that I was the guy for the job, and my career would have ended up a lot different than it did there in Washington. But at the end of the day, they made the decision. I think it was a great decision for them. Andrew Luck, Brent brought them a lot of wins. And I don't think that they're upset about that decision at the end of the day. And that's what I hope CJ Stroud and Bryce Young get from the teams that select them, along with Will Levis and Anthony Richardson and Hendon Hooker and everyone else you can mention. I just hope they go to a team that is bought in on them from top to bottom, because that's the only way that these teams will truly give these quarterbacks an opportunity to go out and be the best versions of themselves. Finding a quarterback in this league is extremely hard. You don't want any dissension in the ranks when you're making that decision.
Which player that you saw in person this year in the booth in college football that's available in this year's draft is somebody that you say to any GM, anybody who would ask you, pick your brain, say that it doesn't matter for need. You take that kid. I like the motor. I like the person. I like the heart. I like the way that I saw him play. I saw the way he took over a game. Is there anybody like that, RG3?
Yeah, Rich, I would say for me, it's Bijan Robinson. I said this on ESPN. His name is of Persian descent when his mom named him, and it means hero. But every defense that he faced thought that he was the villain. And I had an opportunity to call 2 of his games. I know the running back position has been devalued in the NFL just because, first 5 years of the guy's career running the ball, put a lot of tread on the tires. But at the end of the day, if you can get it back like Bijan Robinson, who can essentially do everything that you need a running back to do and a slot receiver to do, and he can do it at an all-pro level, that's a guy that you go out and you draft in the top 10, top 15, top 20, and you don't think twice about it. The kid's special, great person off the field, phenomenal competitor on the field, and I don't think there's a back in the league really like him right now who can kind of do all of the things that he can do. I know many people will point to Christian McCaffrey, but I think he's got an even higher ceiling than that because he can tote the rock 35 times a game if you need him to.
So let me just throw some teams out for that supposition here, because again, you have to and I'd like you to, when you give your answer, think about the needs and where they are in the scheme of things. If you're Detroit at 6, do you go get him, Bijan at 6?
Ooh.
What do you think?
I think if you at Detroit at 6, you have to think about it.
Right.
Now, some people will say that's blasphemous, but just imagine partnering him with the rest of the weapons that they have.
Yeah.
How much better of a quarterback Jared Goff is now going to become.
They got Montgomery. They did get Montgomery in free agency, but I'm just one. I throw that out there. There's Atlanta at 8. You know how certainly and we're going to talk about Lamar Jackson shortly. They clearly are not going in that direction. Right. But they're a run team. You got the Bears at 9 and then the Eagles at 10. Which one do you think jumps out at you? You think they should go get him, if not all of them?
Listen,
Robert.
I think all of these teams should consider him, but when you talk about a back like Bijan, it also depends on where you are as a team.
Yeah.
So to me, the most realistic spot for him would be the Eagles at 10 because they don't have quite as many holes on the rest of their roster. Yes, I know they lost a lot of starters. They lost 6 starters this offseason. But if they could put a guy like Bijan in and have him and Rashad Penny as a 1-2 combo with Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, with that offensive line, that's a team that I say, I would really contemplate doing it because if the Eagles don't do it, I do believe the Cowboys will find a way to move up and go get him. The Cowboys need him, I feel like, more than the Eagles do. Yeah. But they also just got rid of Ezekiel Elliott. They got Tony Pollard coming off of an injury. And don't you think for a second that Jerry Jones doesn't realize that this man's just down the street, right? And the fandom that's going to bring to the star.
Oh yeah.
So I would look at those two teams, the Eagles and the Cowboys, as teams that could go out and get Bijan, and he could help push them over the edge.
Robert Griffin III here from ESPN, spending some great quality time, as always, on the Rich Eisen Show with him. Let's jump into it. You were very vocal when Lamar got his non-exclusive franchise tag tender placed in front of him, and a bunch of teams, when responding to requests for an answer, immediately said, we're not interested in Lamar. You started throwing quite a bit of collusion concepts out there on your Twitter feed. Do you think there's collusion going on right now to keep Lamar Jackson from an offer sheet being signed? Do you think?
Rich, I don't think there's collusion from him signing an offer sheet. I think what Jim Irsay said about guaranteed contracts and how he has looked at it in the MLB and the NBA and how it just hasn't been good for business, I think it's a universal thought process amongst all of the NFL owners. So for all these teams to say, we'll go get Jimmy G, we'll go get Deshaun Watson, we would pay Joe Burrow all of this money, and all of those guys have all been injured in their careers, and it's never prevented a team from going out and getting them. So I truly believe that this Lamar Jackson thing isn't that teams don't want him as a player. It's not that they don't think he's a phenomenal talent. Heck, the Washington Commanders GM Martin Mayhew even came out and said, he's a special guy, but we're not interested. Ron Rivera said, we didn't even look into it. If that doesn't sound like collusion or like a concerted effort to not even give a guy an opportunity who is raging against the machine to sign an offer sheet, I don't know what is. And as you know, I've been very vocal about it, and I'm more than willing to continue to dive into it with you.
So, absolutely, because I think Washington should do it. But I'm also, not privy to any of their conversations where, maybe after Carson Wentz and everything else that they tried, they're like, we did. Why can't they just really dig Sam Howell, and go in that direction? And then we'll find out later on what a silly move that was, as Lamar finally does wind up on another team and is hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. And the same thing with Desmond, Ridder in Atlanta. We had Thomas Dimitroff on. I'm like, walk me through why they're not interested in Atlanta, best of your knowledge, knowing the front office. And he's like, well, they just got out of cap hell that he kind of put them in. And he said, we'll have a conversation later on as to the reasons why he did what he did when he was GM there. But they finally just got out of it. They drafted the kid. They love the kid. And they don't want to switch up. They'd rather put their money in a safety or money in here. And then I think you also know that there's a conversation around the league about, Lamar not finishing the last 2 years. And you put it all together, and 2 first-round picks and a ton of money guaranteed to somebody that you would be just meeting right now, dropped in your lap because you didn't even think it would be possible that you could sign him. They thought it was just a franchise tag full on coming your way. That might lead to a lot of these situations. Robert.
Yeah, I think when you piece it all together, you can find reasons as to why, or try to justify why teams aren't going after Lamar Jackson. But at the end of the day, common sense prevails. It makes zero sense for a team to come out and say, you know what, we're thinking about, using a first-round pick to go get an unproven quarterback in the draft instead of using 2 first-rounders to go get a proven quarterback in Lamar Jackson, who's a unanimous MVP and 26 years old. So that's where I come from. And obviously I've mentioned that I think Lamar's fighting the machine that is the NFL, whether that's NFL agents, NFL GMs and owners, along with NFL insiders. But it really is, because the quarterback position, Rich, is a sacred position, right? When you get that contract, agent negotiating a contract for a quarterback can help him take care of every single one of his other clients on just that one quarterback contract. Say $250 million guaranteed, 1% of that would be $2.5 million. They're set. They can go for the next 5-6 years and take care of 20 other clients because of that one quarterback. So when you take that away from them, and you're a guy like Lamar Jackson, and you're trying to do it without an agent, without the ties to the NFL insiders, you're affecting everybody's bottom line. Now, I'm not saying that teams don't want to win football games and they're not going to go after Lamar because he's doing that by himself. What I'm saying is it doesn't make any sense. We can put up all the names of guys that have missed games over the past couple seasons and how much money they got paid, and you're telling me they're not even willing to think about going and talking to Lamar Jackson? They don't even know what Lamar Jackson wants because they haven't even picked up the phone to call him and talk about an offer potentially.
Well, the problem with that, too, is, and again, I want you to understand, I think some teams should go run the risk here and do it, whatever risk that may be. And I pegged Washington, Atlanta, and Indianapolis because they also don't have quarterbacks and situations that they've already had there. With all due respect to the second-year players and Ridder and Howell, because if you sign this guy to an offer sheet, whatever quarterback's there would be like, what gives? Like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? I thought this was my gig. They don't have those issues. So, what I'm pushing back here on the agent front is if you want to get this highly complicated deal done, which obviously Lamar wants, and he wants to get the money that he thinks he deserves, and he wants to get the security that he deserves, and the spot where there are, receivers that he feels he deserves, right? If he wants that to get done, you're going to have to convince somebody to stroke you the check, and you're going to have to convince a coach to do it, right? And with all due respect, if you're a general manager and you find out Ken Francis is on the phone for Lamar Jackson, you're like, who? Or you're Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft comes up to you and says, hey, Meek Mill says Lamar wants to come here. Don't you think there's a better front foot forward on that business front? Robert?
Yeah, Rich, I think the question you're asking is, should Lamar have an agent? And I would repurpose the question and say, is he being hurt by not having an agent? I think he is right now because he's not able to fight these types of battles.
Right.
Agents don't just represent players. These agencies represent players. They represent coaches. And when we talk about free agency and the legal tampering period, you know this, Rich.
Yeah.
Agents are always tampering, okay? They're constantly negotiating for their players throughout seasons, talking to coaches, and that's where Lamar doesn't have that connection because they actually have to call him. And what I would say on Lamar's front is they're not even picking up the phone. So for Robert Kraft to say Meek Mill is saying this, or there's the stuff about Ken Francis, which Lamar has already come out and says the guy's not negotiating for him, to correct that narrative. My problem is they're not even picking up the phone. How do you know what you're thinking about or what you're going to do in regards to Lamar Jackson if you're not even giving him a chance? And that's where I've seen teams come out when as soon as it happened, they say, we're not interested. Now there's teams at the league meeting saying, we didn't even look into it. Why would you not look into a quarterback of Lamar's caliber? Whereas if it was Joe Burrow on the non-exclusive franchise tag, or if it was Justin Herbert on the non-exclusive franchise tag, all these teams would be interested, it would seem. But for some reason, for Lamar Jackson, that's not the case. And I do think him not having an agent has hurt him in that regard. But it goes well beyond that, and that's why I do believe there is collusion going on.
So give me the team you think should just say, screw it, let's do it. Let's call him up. However we get his number, we call him, we find him wherever he is, and say it's time to talk. Which team do you think should do that? Because again, you're going to need an owner who's going to stroke the check. You need a coach that's going to be up for it. You need a ton of spots that boxes that need to be checked. Give me the team that you think should do it, Robert.
Yeah, so first of all, I would say the only NFL owner that I've heard speak about this to this point who was open and honest about it has been Jim Irsay. He said he believes Lamar is a phenomenal talent, and the money's not an issue. The guaranteed contract is an issue. So I would encourage Irsay and the head coach, Shane Steichen, to go out and talk to Lamar Jackson about what is it that he is asking for. Because at this point, Lamar has requested a trade. What he posted on Twitter wasn't just, hey, let me tell you guys what's going on.
Yeah.
It felt like a farewell letter to the Baltimore Ravens.
Well, it also felt to me, Robert, is a letter to 31 other owners in the NFL to say, hey, if you're thinking that the Ravens are going to match the offer sheet, I've already told them I don't want to come back. And hey, that's the way, and I thought it was wise to him say a letter to the fans. He's talking to the fans, but no. To me, that was an audience of 31 is what those tweets were about. To say, don't worry about them matching an offer sheet. I've already told him I don't intend to play for them anymore. The problem with that is he's going to have to follow through on it if no offer sheet comes. Do you think he would really sit out the year? I mean, this is a guy who loves ball. I don't know, man. Yeah. Robert.
Lamar loves ball, and everything you just laid out, Rich, is exactly why him saying that he requested a trade on March 2nd is different. Yeah. Some people are trying to say, well, he's been out there already, it doesn't matter. But this is the first time Lamar Jackson has actually come out and said, I don't want to be here.
Right.
So I do think after him saying that he would push the envelope and not play. And I don't know if I would necessarily do that, but I'm also not Lamar Jackson, and he's a man of principle. If he says he's going to do something, that's what he's going to end up doing. But if I was the Colts, I would do that. Shane Steichen has an example right there with Jalen Hurts of the guy that he got the most out of, who's a dual-threat quarterback. For Lamar Jackson to go there with the Colts, I think that would be the move. The move that confused me a little bit was the Carolina Panthers trading the dang whole ship to move up to number one and give up all those picks and DJ Moore when they could have just went and gave up 2 first-round picks to sign Lamar Jackson and kept DJ Moore. That kind of confused me, but I understand these 2 quarterbacks at the top of the draft and you want to build it your way. I got no problem with going and getting CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. But if I was the Panthers, I would have at least entertained a conversation with Lamar Jackson. And my understanding is that never happened. That's the confusing part, Rich.
Way to bring it full circle, Robert. Before I let you go, if you don't mind giving me a couple more minutes, word is the Washington Commanders have received an offer for purchase $6 billion. And that Dan Snyder, if he accepts, would get out of the game, and that would be the end of his tenure there. I'm wondering what goes through your mind when you hear that, Robert.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you, Rich. When I hear that, I've been having some really great conversations with this group, led by Josh Harris, and having an opportunity to come in on that ownership group. So I'm like head over heels excited about that process. To be a player for that team, to not have my career go the way that I wanted it to or the fans wanted it to in that city would be a full circle type of moment to come back and try to help that team and that organization build the winner that the fans deserve. So that's something I'm really excited about. It's nothing I can announce at this point.
Sure.
But it's the conversations are happening, and I'm really, really excited about the potential there. And at the end of the day, the fans will throw a parade when Dan Snyder tells the team. They will throw a parade, Rich.
I got to be honest with you, Robert. I mean, the number of fans of the Commanders are like, is this true? Is this really happening? That I've been stopped, dinner parties, events, whatever I've been at, schools, events for my kids. People come up to me. It's been nonstop. And I'm like, I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it or hear it. But, I guess you, having been there in that organization, you would definitely be able to speak to what it was like, Robert?
Yeah, honestly, just with all of the cloud that's been around the organization for such a long time, I did not know that, Rich, when I first got drafted there, right? When I got drafted to D.C. and they flew me to Dulles Airport in Virginia, I'm asking them, why are we in Virginia? I'm just a Texas boy. I didn't know that the Washington Commanders were based in Virginia and played in Maryland. I thought we were in Washington, D.C. like the Wizards. So I had to learn a lot as I was there in my early years. And since I left in 2015, it's just been one thing after another. And I think the team is ready to move on. I think the fans are ready to move on. And it's going to be a sad day in the Snyder household because he's lived his entire life to be the owner of the Commanders. And now that's going to be taken away from him. So I know the fans will rejoice. And I think that, because of that dark cloud, it is time to move on, right? The relationship has run its course probably a long time ago, definitely a long time ago. And I think everybody needs to be excited about what's to come for the Commanders because it's only going to go up.
Well, the $6 billion, he might be able to buy the entire Kleenex company if he needs a tissue, I guess, Robert. I don't know their public valuation off the top of my head, but always appreciate you calling in. You're one of my favorites, as you know. Thanks again, Robert. Greatly appreciate it.
Okay. Appreciate you, Richard. God bless, brother.
You're right back at you. There's RG3, the one and only. Love talking to him. Gosh, do I ever. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.